Do we have a fun one in store today, my friend? I'm here at Paradise Park Trail here in Mount Hood National Forest, and we are hiking up to Paradise Park. Today is August 9th, 2025. It is a Saturday, and it's a little after sunrise, about 6:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we are about to climb a few thousand feet elevation. So here's our main Kiwanis Road. Here is our trail connector, 0.2 miles to the Paradise Park Trailhead proper. I'd recommend parking at that main Paradise Park Trailhead parking zone. Probably room for about 10 or 12 cars, give or take. And just come a couple tents over here, and we are going to be crossing the bridge over Zigzag River. You can already hear the mighty roar of the river, and we will be beginning our ascent. And come over to the edge here and get a shot of beautiful Zigzag River. Oh, look at that, my friend. That is beautiful. Check out the other side. Whenever you come to a bridge, you gotta look down both sides, right? And let's continue along. We have crossed this bridge and we are getting on the trail. I can see a little signage straight ahead. Paradise Park Trail. Today is August 9th, 2025. A little chilly right now, probably in the high 40s. Feels very nice though, very good hiking weather, very good ascension weather, I would call it. And here is our signage. Paradise Park Trail, number 778. Paradise Park, 6.5 miles. Well, let's get to it. So up to the threshold of Paradise Park is about 2,500 feet. Elevation gain, around 6 miles. And then once you get on the PCT, there's Paradise Park Loop, which is a different trail, and that adds about another 900 feet, give or take, another 4 miles or so. So if you look at all trails, they'll say this is about 16 miles, about 3,400 feet. Then you read through the comments and some people say it's 18 or 20 miles. I don't know how they calculated that. That could be inaccurate, but we'll just say somewhere between 16 and 20 miles. Oh man, this is a beautiful zone. So our hike today starts through classic old growth forest section of Mount Hood. Very beautiful zone. It's kind of funny, I born and raised in the Portland metropolitan area, so this kind of ecological footprint really is my backyard. So this to me is kind of generic cut and paste national forest, but I realize it's different strokes, different folks. If you're from Oklahoma, this might be absolutely wild to you. To me, this is just kind of backyard play, kind of forest. But nonetheless, let me stop and pan back just so you get the epicosity. These are legit old growth trees. This is a true wonderland zone, my friend. So I am a super fan of Timberline Loop, Mount Hood, a wilderness zone. I think it's the ultimate backpacking loop in the state of Oregon as far as Alpine Wonderland Zone. I think Broken Top Loop in Central Oregon, Three Sisters Wilderness, and Three Fingered Jack Loop, Jefferson Wilderness, round out our top 3 Alpine Wonderland loops. Done all 3. I've got full hike series videos available of all 3. I'm a huge super fan. So I have a little bit different approach for how I do Timberline. I live in Central Oregon in Madras, so about an hour away, maybe up to an hour 15, hour 30 to all the trailheads for Timberline Loop. It's a 40-mile loop. It's very well built out, great infrastructure. So I prefer to break it off into a series of day hikes, 15, 18, 20-mile day hikes, essentially out and backs, and pick off the Wonderland zones, cherry picker style, and then I cobble those together. So I'm generally not inclined to do the 3 or 4 day loop and 1 super hike. I'd rather just kind of focus on quadrants. The reason I do that is it's a pretty short drive, you know, an hour, a little over an hour each way, not bad. Get to sleep in my warm, cozy bed at night. I don't have to wear a backpack. Just focus on being fast and quick. So that is my approach. And pursuant to that, the first time today I'm doing the Paradise Park Trail approach up to Timberline Loop, starting down here at the Trailhead, Trail 778. So I will be hiking up to the junction with Pacific Crest Trail. If you stop there and turn around, it's about 12 miles and 2,500 feet elevation gain. Not that bad of a hike, really more of a moderate hike, leaving some mileage and elevation gain on the table. But it being August 9th, 2025, I'm quite confident most of the backcountry campsites up in Paradise Park are going to be taken. This is prime time. Really what I'd like to do is go up there and get video of all of the different camping spots. But in order to do that, August is not the time to do it. I got to do that like maybe October-ish. Hope that it's kind of off season, nobody's using it. So my approach, may cobbling together a video perspective. Today I'm just going to get Paradise Park Trailhead 778 to the PCT, that 12-mile portion. I come back in October from Timberline Lodge and hike over to Paradise Park. Hope that nobody's there. Get the upper portion. Hopefully capture all of the backcountry campsites. Maybe even number them and try to create a helpful guide for future backpackers. Cobble together that video and this video, and now I've got the whole Paradise Park hike. So I don't see any reason to go up to the top when it's going to be full of tents. I have a general rule for my channel. I don't ever video people, tents, cars, you know, urban life. It's all wilderness. So I can't really video the upper section right now in August anyway. It's the worst time of the year to do that. No reason to hike it to the top for the sake of it. So I will just be stopping at the PCT. I recognize it's probably an unusual approach. Most people would be hiking with the dangled carrot of getting to Paradise Park Loop as the destination. So you might think it's crazy to do the hard part, which is the couple thousand feet elevation gain through the forest. Basically put in the work and then don't get the reward at the end. But got a little bit different goal in mind than the typical hiker, trying to cobble together some videos. So that is my approach. And I'm just such a fan of this Timberline Loop area, really a Wonderland zone, that I really want to capture every approach. You know, I've got like Mazama. It's beautiful. I know that's probably more of a road not taken, path not taken. Probably the toughest approach because it's up, a few thousand feet in just a few miles. Pretty steep gradation. So probably the most challenging approach, pound for pound, dollar for dollar, as far as just getting to Timberline Loop. Obviously, there are much easier ways to get to Timberline Loop, but still highly recommend it. Some really beautiful perspectives. And Vista Ridge and Elk Cove area, Tilly Jane area, Cloud Cap area, Elk and Newton, Mona Falls, Sandy River area. Obviously, Timberline Lodge is probably the most famous place to launch from. Probably where I'd recommend if you're doing the whole loop proper, backcountry, backpacking style, 3 or 4 days as most people do it. I would park at Timberline Lodge, reward yourself with a nice meal at the end of it. Kind of a fun way to do it. But today is a super fan of Timberline Loop. I'm adding this hike, Paradise Park Trailhead 778, up to the PCT as part of my series, trying to capture the beauty and approaches to Timberline Loop. So this first section, pretty basic, Mount Hood National Forest, but I do believe as I get higher and higher, I will get some good views of Zigzag Canyon, and we'll connect up with Zigzag Mountain Trail. It's a hike I haven't done yet, I look forward to doing as well. Some interesting intel. I always like analyzing hiking patterns, traffic patterns. There was 3 vehicles at the Paradise Park Trailhead 778 off the Kiwanis Camp Road. Considering I got here around sunrise, I'm inclined to think those are overnight parkers. So that's probably at least 3 people up at Paradise Park. And you got to figure there's some people camping there that are just on the loop. So probably 5, 6, 7 of the sites are taken, I would guess right now. I'm going to stop and fill out my Mount Hood Wilderness permit. I've decided to be generous and issue myself one. Never know if you're going to accept your own request. It is self-issue after all. Okay, so we are officially entering the threshold of Mount Hood Wilderness. I just did a little all trails check because I got 5G right now, and we're about 0.8 miles in. Really the bottom of the first switchback. I'm adding the 0.2 miles from the Paradise Park Trailhead 778. For some reason the All Trails version doesn't include that 0.2 miles, but I am. So we're about 0.8 miles in, a little under a mile. Just getting started. And we are beginning our switchback ascension. Keeping it real, this is a pretty basic section of Mount Hood Wilderness. We are officially in wilderness, across threshold from Mount Hood National Forest to Mount Hood Wilderness. It doesn't really change much other than the regulations and laws are a little different. Generally speaking, axiomatically, the wilderness areas are always the prettiest areas, the highest quality areas. The Tootsie Roll center of the Tootsie Pops. National forests, while pretty, typically aren't the most premium areas. So we are in the wilderness. But for all intents and purposes, it doesn't really change much. You still get the occasional road noise of a loud truck. The main highway is not too far from us. And now we're just going to be ascending a series of switchbacks. Nothing too crazy. So far, this isn't bad. The segment until we get to PCT, which is really where I view we connect with Timberline Loop proper, is 12 miles, 2,500 foot elevation gain round trip. So 6 miles one way. So 6 miles up 2,500 feet. Actually not bad. Pretty good gradation. So you'll definitely be able to tell you going up, it's not that steep gradation that really saps people's energy and stamina. Like for instance, I just went and did Black Crater Summit, Volcanic Summit in Three Sisters Wilderness last month. It's about a 7-mile hike, not long, about 3.5 mile one way. There's 3.5 mile up 2,300 feet. So if I have a choice, 3.5 mile up 2,300 feet or 6 miles up 2,500 feet, that's actually a lot easier. People just look at the raw mileage and assume it's harder. It's actually easier. 6 miles up 2,500 feet, much easier than 3.5 miles up 2,300 feet, because it's a lower slope, as they'd say, lower gradation, so it's actually easier. It's always easier to hike longer at less elevation gain per mile. So kind of hiker's math, different way to look at it. So actually this will be easier. I expect this hike, even though it's 5 miles longer, to feel easier because it's just less of a mountain goat stair climber hike. Stop here and pan back just so that you can get the epicosity. Sometimes there's a grandiosity to the old growth trees. It's got an epic feel. If I just keep looking at human height, it kind of gets lost. So let's stop and pan back occasionally, set the scene. We are in our switchback section. I've got T-Mobile, and so far I've had excellent 5G coverage, so that's cool. I'm not complaining. Wasn't even expecting that, but I guess we're really not that far from civilization at this point. As I said, you can still kind of hear the highway noise, so this is not too shocking. I still have 5G. We'll see when I actually lose reception. Well, I've got it. It makes it easier to track my progress on all trails. Every once in a while, I'll pull it up and see how many miles I've gone. I will caution, sometimes that can be fun, sometimes it can be discouraging. So depending on your personality type, that may or may not be a good habit to get into. So for some people, that can make it feel tortuously longer than if they just get lost in the groove. So different strokes, different folks. So far, not really tired yet. Nice big breakfast, about 1,000 calories. Get myself started. Then when I was going on an all-day hike, staying at Camp Creek Campground, spot 10. My recommendation, I think the best site at Camp Creek Campground. Also, it's like 1.5 miles away from the trailhead here off Kiwanis Camp Road, so like just took 5 minutes to get to the trailhead, so that was nice. I'll have the overhead of a drive there back, driving directly back to the campsite at the end of my hike. So part of the dividend of camping in the area, you get that base camp thing going on. I do have a full review of Camp Creek Campground available. I don't know if you play video games, this might make sense to you. I have a tendency to be a completionist for a game I really like, so that's the same kind of approach I'm taking with the Timberline Loop trail system. Nice little sign here from Mount Hood Wilderness. So since I think Timberline Loop is a premium zone here in the state of Oregon, best backpacking loop in the state of Oregon, and take a completionist mentality, and I want to capture the whole loop, all of the approach vectors like the one I'm on now, Paradise Park 778 to Timberline Loop, kind of how I roll. Maybe a tad OCD, but is what it is. So that's why we're doing Paradise Park 778 today. This is a common approach vector up to the Timberline Loop. I would say that The Paradise Park approach is a little bit different mentality than your typical Timberline looper. This is kind of almost its own backpacking approach. Park at the Paradise Park 778 trailhead, hike up to Paradise Park and just backcountry camp. Maybe spend a couple nights up there, do some day hikes to explore western quadrant of Timberline Loop, some of the highlights, then go back. Kind of like its own little side riff of capturing a really high quality section of Timberline Loop. That's a little bit different, the mentality of trying to do the entire 40-mile loop. More of a 3 or 4 day thing, and you're gonna be going all the way around the loop, so moving your base camp each day by definition. So this is kind of a side play. Like maybe you've already done Timberline Loop and decided Paradise Park was one of your favorite parts, or maybe you only have 1 night or 2 nights available and you can't do the whole loop. You're just gonna do the Paradise Park portion. Now you can make the argument that it's much easier even if you're not doing the whole loop, but if you're just doing Paradise Park, you could just park at Timberline Lodge and hike over to Paradise Park. It would be a shorter, less elevation gain, aka easier hike. You still get to the Tootsie Roll Center, the Pootsie Pop. You still get to Paradise Park, but easier approach. So I'd say this longer approach from really the base of the forest and entering wilderness zone definitely has more elevation gain associated, well over 1,000 feet more relative to the Timberline Loop, Timberline Lodge approach. So this is more of a purist. I didn't even want to interact with the Timberline Lodge crowd. Just wanted to park the base of the zone, the Mount Hood National Forest, parking area with like 10 or 12 cars. You know, that's the size of the lot. And I just hike up Mount Hood National Forest, enter the wilderness zone, get up to Paradise Park on the side, do the loop, camp, go back, drive home. Never even saw the lodge and kind of avoided the huge crowds of people. I get that. In order to do that though, you add another 1,000 plus feet of elevation gain, but I think that's hearty, good for the soul. And this isn't that bad really. Pretty well gradated. So I can tell you, for instance, having done Mazama, kind of I'll say in the northwest quadrant of Timberline Loop, that one's much harder because it's about the same elevation gain, but in like less than like a third of the distance, which means it's much steeper. So as far as pure difficulty, the Mazama approach is a few thousand feet elevation gain in just a few miles. This is 2,500 over 6 miles, much easier. So keeping it real, so far this is pretty generic. Mount Hood National Forest, Mount Hood Wilderness. Technically we are in the wilderness area, but this so far, about a mile and a half in, I'll guesstimate, is pretty generic. So if I'm doing Paradise Park Trail 778 just for the pure beauty of it, at least in the first mile and a half, really haven't gotten any yield. Pretty basic. This is pretty much like every trail in Mount Hood National Forest so far. But I do believe we're in our cost of doing business phase, and in a couple miles we'll get up and get some special views of Zigzag Canyon, and we'll get to a zone that is uniquely Paradise Park Trail 778. That will make this initial slog worth the investment as we steadily ascend our switchbacks. Our switchback coming, my friend. Haven't really gotten any of the glints of the sun peeking through the trees yet. We had an overcast morning. kind of an interesting weather profile here. As we round our switchback, low is kind of in the high 40s, which is probably the neighborhood it's in now. Feels nice. You always want to be ascending when it's cool. In the summer, if you can be ascending in the 40s, 50s, makes all the difference in the world. It makes it super easy. That's what I'm doing right now, and I feel great. But later today, it'll be about 80. I should be well off the mountain before it hits the first number being 8 on the Fahrenheit-o-meter. Probably be off the mountain in the low 70s. And this has pretty good canopy. Canopy creates shade. You can drop 5 or 10 more degrees. So, all in all, for an August hike, this is not really a scorcher. Between the high 40s low and 80 high, being off the mountain before prime time and the shade, really I'll be mainly hiking in the 50s and 60s, which is exactly what you want in August. Be in the W column. No shards of sunlight lighting up the forest yet, but I think that will be coming. You know, when you do a lot of wilderness adventuring like I do, it's the little things you start tracking. Like, I look forward to the sunlight in the morning because I typically start these sunrise-ish, as a good wilderness adventurer should, manage their temperature and hydration. So I always look forward to that morning laser light show where the sun beams through the trees, lighting it up, giving you a full spectrum greenness. It's always a little morning treat, and it always manifests itself a little differently every hike. But even though that doesn't really seem like something to be hiking for, it ends up being one of those little treats I look forward to. So we haven't gotten to that phase yet, but it is coming, my friend. This is pretty well graded. I don't really feel like this is that difficult. I really enjoy making videos, and as you can see, I have a tendency to ramble. Narrate, I guess, would be the word. But the funny thing is, to keep your breath to talk actually takes the majority of your lung capacity. So if I wasn't narrating, I probably wouldn't even be out of breath. But you almost need 4 lungs, 2 sets, one for the hike, one for the rambling, the narration. So if I just button up and hike, my breathing comes under control in a matter of seconds. I don't sound like I'm out of breath, but it's that whole walk, talk, and chew bubblegum thing. And we do so much at once. We are switchbacking our way up Mount Hood Wilderness towards Paradise Park and Timberline Loop and majestic mountain magic, Zigzag Canyon. We will be going by the Zigzag Mountain Trail Junction, and that's a separate hike. So I've set a goal of essentially doing all of the premium hikes in the 11 western states, Western Canada and Alaska. So it sounds like a grand undertaking, and it is. But the good news is it doesn't have any hard deadline. I consider it to be a 30 to 40 year passion project. I live in Central Oregon, so I'm kind of focusing more on my own backyard, so to speak. Oregon and Washington for the first few years. Their inner layer of the onion, I call it. Stuff that I can reasonably do day hikes with my vehicle, my Jeep Wagoneer. And then my plan is to buy an RV, really a travel trailer to hitch to my Jeep Wagoneer. And then I can go do concentrated attacks in Montana and Wyoming and Idaho and Colorado, etc., western half of the United States. Saturation style, go to an area, a couple weeks and kind of hit all the trails. One-stop shopping mentality. It's way more efficient than trying to go back and forth from Oregon. Overhead of the drives there and back is so long that it makes it unfun. You never actually get through all the trails. So saturation style is the approach. So I plan to do every premium hike. Premium is the asterisk, my own assessment of what does and doesn't qualify, but all trails is a pretty good indicator. Probably 50 to 75% of the trails and all trails I would consider premium. Some of them are pretty generic. I'm not going to bother doing. It's not a purely OCD, catalog every trail type mentality. Trying to do a creme de la creme filter of the trails worth doing. But so I do the hiking, wilderness adventuring, I like to call it. Then I do campground reviews. I want to do a full walkthrough campground review of every major campground in the 11 western states as well. I call that my reviewing each campsite series. I don't know, I've done 60 or 80 or 100 so far. I'm not really keeping a running tally, but enough that I got a sense of how to do it and how long it takes to do one and how to edit it and yada, yada, yada. So I plan to systematically do every campground in the 11 western states. I've got a playlist with about 20 of them so far in Mount Hood National Forest. And I got a playlist for Lambeth National Forest and Descension National Forest, yada yada. But I think those are a fun resource for people to use. Seems to be getting a lot of positive feedback from people thanking me for doing them and helping them book which campsite they want for their family. To me, that's the reward. I mean, I'm doing all this as a free service. Don't expect anything in return, but it's making me feel good when somebody makes a comment that my video helped them find the perfect site for them and their family and they had a great time. And that's the reward in itself. Feels good to make somebody's life maybe 1% better for a week. That's all you can do is pay it forward, right? So having read the write-up at the Forestry Service website, their newly redesigned portal style website of Paradise Park 778, the trail I'm on right now, it said the first 1.7 miles was a switchback ascension to a flat zone. I think I'm at the flat zone, which is nice. Make breathing a little easier. Breathing plus narration equals out of breath. There's an equation for you calculus folk. But I'm still able to function, bump, bump. So, like a little math humor. That one right there was worth like 1,000 views. People love calculus humor. Anyways, I'm to the flat section. This feels good. So we got the 1.7 mile initial switchback section done to the nice long flat section. This said it was 0.7 miles to a ridgeline. So I definitely recommend before you come do a hike. I got kind of a photographic memory, so maybe it gives me a minor advantage, but I study the trail, like the all trails map, and I go and read the Forestry Service description, and I even wrote it down on my phone as a note on my iPhone. So I read it a couple times. So I study like a test before a hike. It puts me in a better position to make good decisions. A lot of wilderness adventuring is incremental decision making, but the more you front load yourself with data, the better your decisions will be. So having studied that, I know that I did the 1.7 mile switchback. Now I'm on the 0.7 mile flat approach to a ridgeline. I think when I get to the ridgeline, this 0.7 mile section, and now that's when the views will open up. That's when I'll start beginning my first real payoffs of having decided to do Paradise Park 778. So I'm hoping, at least. We'll see. TBD. But fingers crossed. Either way, even if I get all the way to my endpoint today, which is the PCT Junction, be a 12 mile, 2,500 foot elevation gain, even if the entire thing is like this and there's really no payoff, I'll still be glad I did it. Bucket list, mental mapping, I call it, of the trails. Now I will have bagged Paradise Park 778. Experience points, level up my character. So for that reason alone, I think it's worth it no matter what. So if the second you get on the trail, you've already chalked it up in the W column, everything else from the first step on is gravy. I think you set yourself up for a good experience. I gotta say, this flat zone is nice. after 1.7 miles of endless switchbacks. Nothing too crazy, but enough that you could definitely tell you're going up. It's really nice to be flat. This is spoiling me, downright delightful. This flat section is very pleasurable, I must say. So far, I feel like I'm making a good clip. Probably around 2 miles in, only going up 6, so I'm already a third up. I still kind of have that I just started effervescent glow. So we'll be up to PCT before we know it, my friend. Just did an all trails check. I will say T-Mobile still have 5G. I'm 2 miles into the hike so far. I've got like the 5G Ultra, so phone is humming with internet connectivity. So 2 miles in, still have great internet. Not that you should be like playing on your phone while you're hiking. A, that's dangerous from a situational awareness point of view. B, that's kind of missing the point of why you're out here to begin with, right? This is kind of a unplugged situation for most people, which it should be. Get away from internets, the interwebs. So 2 miles in, started at about 2,800 feet, we'll say, give or take. Right now I'm at about 3,700 feet. So I've done about 900 feet of elevation gain in the first 2 miles, which isn't that bad of a gradation. This is actually not bad. If I wasn't narrating while ascending, which really takes 4 lungs, not 2, but I only happen to have 2, I wouldn't have even really gotten out of breath. Like, you know, for a in-shape wilderness adventure, this isn't that bad. This is a pretty easy hike. So I'm at about 2 miles in, about 900 feet. I'm going up about 2,500 feet, so I'm over a third of the way up, which is nice. As far as the elevation, and I'm about a third as far as the distance. So now I do detect we're slightly going downhill a little bit. There's a flat section, this 0.7 miles. We will take the Reprieve. It's always a little nice. Maybe I'm a glutton for punishment, but typically on the way down, it's on your back, you're out and back, it's almost all downhill. So I don't mind a little section where you go slightly uphill on the way back. Kind of get your heart pumping a little bit. It's good. Good for your lactate buildup in your muscles to get them charging a little bit on the way back so it's not all downhill. So kind of like it. This is definitely dark and shady. I happen to dig it. If you watch too many horror movies, this could be creepy, but I do watch too many horror movies, but I don't really let my mind go there because I'm a wilderness adventurer. I've got so much experience in the forest and wilderness, I don't really associate it with horror movies. But you could totally take this as a creepy section if you really wanted to. I just find it beautiful. And the shade is on point. I mean, the sun is starting, you can see little peaks of the sun up there, but this is nice. This is really nice later in the day. Ooh, look at that. The sun. Ooh, I really like this. You're looking at that, and then you go up here. You got the sun like gleaming between the old growth trees. That is gorgeous. I am digging that. So later in the day, when it's 70s or 80 even, which I think is the high for today, this is a nice area. A little shade respite. Remember, the shade will make it 5 or 10 degrees colder automatically. And then you do it earlier in the day like I am. And so let me talk about my gear. I'm a gear nerd. Being a wilderness adventurer, I'm totally a gear nerd. I think most people that I know that are into wilderness adventuring, like half the fun, frankly, is them having fun researching gear and buying gear and trying gear. And there's a whole thing there, which, not a criticism, I am one of those people. So I love the gear. The gear's one of the most fun parts. So I am a Nerona and Mammoth guy. Those are my two brands when it comes to clothing. So I pretty much exclusively wear Nerona and Mammoth. I don't have like an endorsement or anything, not sponsored. It's a very small, humble 1,000 subscriber channel. But that said, I am a Nerona Mammoth guy through and through. I'm an American, but I'm of Norwegian descent. Maybe that's why I'm into wilderness adventuring, but so Norrøna is a natural fit. I love Norway, super fan of Norway. Really like Norrøna, good gear. So I've got the Trollveggen Power Stretch Pro fleece jacket. I guess it's more of a, well, I guess you can call it a jacket, it is a zip up. So I've got the Norrøna Trollveggen Power Stretch Pro fleece top. Those are my favorite. I always wear those hiking. That is my base layer fleece of choice, my Norrøna Trollveggen Power Stretch Pro. I've got it like in 8 different colors. I'm that kind of a nerd, but I love it, man. I walk in my closet and I see my fleet of Norrøna and I'm filled with joy. So it's the little things in life. So I'm wearing Norrøna Trollveggen Power Stretch Pro fleece top. And then I recently for this year got the Norrøna, I got them on the outlet online, the 850 super light Trollveggen jackets. Got it in a couple colors to correspondingly match my Trollveggen fleeces, my Power Stretch Pro fleeces. So I got that. It's pretty cool. It's only a half a pound. It's 8 ounces. It's like super light, ultra light, and it's packable. So the model is in the morning, like right now I'm wearing the fleece jacket, and theoretically, like on the return hike, if I start getting warm, I could take off the 8 ounce ultralight down jacket, very light, ultra light down jacket, and basically pack it up and put it in my pocket, roll it up and into a little ball, put it in my pocket. So then I get the best of both worlds. I get the heat on the way up and I get the downsizing on the way down. So I will also say as a side note, maybe this is my own bugaboo, I don't like taking a pack if I don't have to. So I have a tendency to shove stuff in my pockets. Might be archaic, but these Trollveggen ultralight, super light down jackets have massive pockets. I'm impressed. So right now I have 2 sugar-free Powerades, a Rain sugar-free energy drink, like 4 or 5 beef jerky sticks, like 3 bags of Quest, like Reese's Pieces keto candy. I got 2 bricks, power bricks, a cord, my keys, and basically I got freaking everything. So I gotta say, it's pretty impressive. Have all that stuff in an ultralight jacket, and it works. I had to kind of maneuver a little bit to pack both the pockets ever so I can get all that in. My first attempt, I couldn't get it all in, but if you pack it like you're packing the back of a car for a trip in your pockets, you can efficiently get the most out of your square footage, and I was able to get all that stuff in. So I'm in the spiderweb section of the trail. So we are finishing this 0.7 mile flatter approach to the ridgeline, and I do believe, speak of the devil, that we are at our ridgeline. Here's our main trail. Here's our first grand angel singing perspectives from the ridgeline. This is really the first payoff of this hike so far. We got to watch kind of a steep precipice, but let's come up here. Oh man, that is beautiful. Hello, Mount Hood Wilderness, my old friend. This is gorgeous. Pan over here, can I interest you in a sea of old growth trees? That is ridiculous. So this is our first viewpoint zone from Paradise Park 778. And look at this, my friend. Got the beautiful sun beaming over our sea of old growth magic. It's Alpine Wonderland Zone. You can see this epic sea of trees, my friend. And this is a little rocky outcropping right here. We'll walk over here and show you the sun, the sea of old growth, and then of course down there, got a beautiful Wonderland Zone. So this is really our first viewpoint panorama splendor from Paradise Park 778. Nice little viewpoint, not like the most epic viewpoint. I mean, you can still see the highway and stuff. Saw a few vehicles on the other side of the sea of old growth. So, but that said, it's a beautiful little spot. Take a gander. And we will continue up. So this is what they call the ridgeline, my friend. We are in the ridgeline zone officially, which means we bagged the 1.7 mile initial switchbacks. We bagged the 0.7 mile approach. Now we're in a ridgeline zone. We'll be ascending this ridgeline ultimately up to Zigzag Mountain Trail Junction and then the PCT. So here's another little viewpoint. I like the last one, had a panoramic feel. This one I don't think is as good. Yeah, stop and get a sense, but I'm not gonna go too far. I'm not a guy that likes to get too close to the edge. Just don't want something horrible to happen. A little bit of a heights thing, so try to stay safely away from the precipice. And here's our third little viewpoint. Again, I'm inclined to kind of check all these out. This is my first time ever doing this, but see, again, that really gets you nothing. So as far as the viewpoints on this ridgeline, they were generous with how many they gave you, but really the first one is the only good one. Second and third one are meh. You don't really see anything, so I don't see any value in getting right up against the precipice with no view. The worst of both worlds, so is what it is. So we're at about 2.5 miles of our 6 mile ascension to the PCT, which joins us with the Timberline Loop proper. So it's about 43.33% to be exact in on our ascension as far as distance. And we're about 1,000 of our 2,500 feet elevation. So about 40%, or about 40%, 43%. So a little under halfway, not so bad. This isn't gonna be that long of a hike based on that. I'm kind of doing the hardest parts now. In theory, I'll be at a slower clip going up than going down. So I think I started about 6:30. So I'm an hour and a half in and I'm 40% of the way up. So looking to be not that long of a hike, all things considered. Which is a beautiful section. It's a decent gradation. Pretty steep, but not like crazy, but say moderately steep. Steep enough that you can tell we're going up for sure. Here's looking back on our trail. This is definitely a shady part of Mount Hood Wilderness. Definitely gets you good canopy, so good 5 or 10 degrees cooler in this section, even at the prime time summer day, 2, 3, 4 in the afternoon. That's good. It does kind of have a dark, dreary feel to it, but I guess you could find it invigorating or creepy, but I choose invigorating. I am a fan of Mount Hood Wilderness. Now we are in a flat section. Got our first like ridgeline view of the canyon. Decent, not like epic, but decent. Nice little reward after that long 2.5 mile ascension to that point. Gives you a little bit of eye candy, but unfortunately there were trucks on the highway across the way. If you wanted to like get a picture, you have to wait till there's no cars on the road. Could be slightly annoying, but still a very beautiful canyon. And now here we are in a flat section of the trail. It's interesting, the elevation profile of this hike. Switchbacks, then flat, ridgeline, then steep. Now we're flat again. So I guess it's a good thing that you get variance. You get huff and puff sections and flat relaxation sections. This right now is downright spoiling. This is so nice and flat. It's like I could walk for days like this right now, but we still got another 1,300 feet up PCT. Nothing too crazy. Step over a few logs here. See, this kind of stuff doesn't bother me. You have, I'll break it up into kind of two styles. You have some trails where it had a rough winter and there's a bunch of down logs and it's like an obstacle course and it's almost unhikeable until they come through with chainsaws and kind of restore its glory. Then you get some that just have a couple logs that could almost be charming. Hoping this is the charming side. This is the first one where I actually have to use both hands. Down logs aren't a big deal to me. I would say that there's kind of two situations. Some trails intentionally permanently leave a down log or two as part of the charm, and they're pretty easy and most able-bodied adults can easily just step over them. And it's like they have no intention of ever clearing it because they view it as part of the trail, part of the experience. Those don't bother me at all. Like, I think those are charming. The other side of the spectrum, sometimes you'll have a rough winter and you'll actually have like an area, like a good example is near Badger Lake, South Quadrant of Mount Hood National Forest. That area, sometimes if people count 40, 60, 80, 100 logs, that's a bit much. That's beyond the charming aspect. That's more like it needs to be cleared with chainsaws. We are still in an ultra shaded section of Mount Hood National Forest. Kind of funny, I walked through some really thick spider webs that I didn't see because it's so shaded. Startled me more than anything because it was like thick and my phone went flying. And then like, okay, so I kept hiking. And then like a couple minutes later, I felt something on my thumb. Looked down and there was like a big bug just sitting on my thumb. Wasn't expecting, phone went flying. So I've already had 2 phone ejections from my hands. That almost never happens. It happened twice, like bang, bang in a few minutes. So kind of a interesting section here. I think because of the shade, I can't really see. Like if you're walking into a big spider web straight ahead, this section doesn't really have it because of the spacing. A couple sections back there got really narrow. You can't really see the spider webs because you don't have the sun angle kind of lighting them up. You just walk right into them. So it is what it is. Part of the joy of wilderness adventuring. So far, in the first 3 miles up Paradise Park, it's what I would call kind of a generic Mount Hood section. Not really any eye candy that would be worth writing home about. Kind of I like this little kind of croquet ring section. I feel like I'm a croquet ball just hit by a mallet. Going through, scoring a point. Yes, I did it. So far, this is basically a generic section of Mount Hood Wilderness, Mount Hood National Forest. There are 2 technical designations, but for all intents and purposes, they're the same thing as far as the eyes. And this is a generic section of said Mount Hood zone. Haven't really seen any eye candy or anything noteworthy. If it stays like this all the way up to Paradise Park, then at least I will have learned the lesson that there's nothing that special about Paradise Park 778. It's just a connector, classic forest, old growth section. Beautiful for a connector, old growth forest section, but nothing particularly noteworthy. My frame of reference is relative to all the other approaches to Timberline. So on my channel, Wilderness Trail Perspective, I've got a whole series dedicated to Timberline Loop, and done the Zigzag Canyon section and the Ramona Falls section and Top Spur, Bald Mountain, McNeil Point, Elk Cove section, the approach from Mazama, gone over to Cloud Cap Inn, then the Cooper Spur shelter up to Newton Glacier, Knoll Ridge. Got the Tilly Jane approach, gone on the southeast side. I've done Elk Meadows and Clark Creek, Newton Creek, that whole zone. So I've pretty much done all the usual suspects around Mount Hood. Got a few more Mount Hood Timberline hikes I'd like to do to get to a few sections I haven't fully captured yet, but I've done the lion's share, enough that I can speak with some knowledge and authority on the Mount Hood Loop in general. And so far, this Paradise Park approach in the first 3 miles is nothing special. I found Mazama to be more beautiful, although harder, steeper gradation. And obviously, if you're just trying to get to the highlights, going up to Timberline Lodge and then hiking, getting on the PCT, hiking essentially west towards Zigzag Canyon and down ultimately to Ramona Falls, that is definitely a more premium hike than this. This isn't even on the same level as that. That is northeast from us, and we will connect up to that section in 3 miles. So we are in that zone. But as far as this forest approach, it's not really wet my whistle yet. We'll see. Keeping it real. Okay, now I'm unstoppable. I just pulled over and had my second energy drink of the morning, Red Dragon Rain, 0 sugar keto. Little pit stop. Now I am chock full of caffeine, rearing and ready to go. I do also have 2 sugar-free Powerades on me. I intend to drink on the way back. I'll say based on the shade profile of this hike, don't know if I'm even gonna need that much fluid. I took a Boy Scout mentality, hope for the best, plan for the worst. And I did do some research and I got the impression this was pretty shaded. It's even more canopy than I expected. So not really expecting the energy zap of the direct sun that would require me to refuel with all my Powerades. It might be a little overstocked, but better be overstocked than understocked. So it's the little things, right? Kind of funny, I pulled out my Rain Red Dragon sugar-free energy drink keto, tried to open it and the little top busted off. It's like, no. So I was undeterred. I was like, no, I'm still gonna drink this thing. So put my Rain on a stump, grabbed a little narrow branch, basically beat it open like a caveman, and it exploded when I finally broke through, but then I was able to drink it. So never get between a man and his energy drink. That's what I say. First time I've ever opened up an energy drink with a branch, caveman style. Kind of into it though. Made it more rewarding and actually made it taste a little bit better. A little sweeter nectar, having to work harder to get to it. So I just downed that. Now we are ascending. Still in this hyper shaded section. You know, it's funny, I know that Paradise Park is a bit of a floral Alpine Meadow. I've been there before. I've hiked through Paradise Park, so I am familiar with it. My Own Two Eyes Doctrine. So I knew this Paradise Park Trail 778 was not a meadow. I knew it was a forest climb, but that said, I don't know what I was expecting. Still a little bit even more shaded and foresty than I was expecting. I thought it was a little bit more open, a little bit more ridgeliney, a little bit more of that, I'll say, pseudo Timberline feel. I thought I'd see a little bit more spruces and occasional hemlock, and I thought it was kind of an extension of the Timberline Loop, which has that classic alpine ecological footprint, alpine mix of pine, spruces, hemlocks, and has that tailored, cultivated feel. I think I thought it was a little bit more Timberline adjacent than it is. This is just a generic section of Mount Hood so far, about halfway up. Okay, I'd say we just kind of got through Spiderweb Row, turned around, probably about 1/10 of a mile of an area that was so narrow that it was just all spiderwebs. I walked through it with my hand clearing it, like, you know, I don't want to walk my face into a spider web, so I'd rather just kind of be motioning my arm up and down in front of me as I go through those sections. Much better that your hand touches spiderweb than your face. So could even film in that section because there's so many spider webs. But it's It's part of the incumbent risk of being the first hiker on the trail in the morning, is you get to be the spiderweb clearer, the distinguished honor being the spiderweb clearer. Also tells me that the 3 cars in the parking lot are not just ahead of me, they're overnighters. Makes sense because I got here basically after sunrise, so they would have had to just get on the trail ahead of me unless they started in the dark. Doesn't make sense, so I think it's fair to conclude those 3 people were overnighters. Which means I'm literally the only one on this trail, nobody in front of me. Haven't seen anybody, haven't heard anybody. Basically a private wilderness adventuring experience so far. Coming up to another spiderweb section. That's beautiful. You see, stop here and pan up. See these old growth trees straight ahead. Beautiful section. A little bit of an overgrown feel with the bushery kind of encroaching onto the trail, with the sun beaming over our old growth wonderland zone here in Mount Hood Wilderness. Starting to light up this old growth wonderland. So we ascend Paradise Park 778. I don't generally include the numerology of the trail, but distinguishing Paradise Park 778 from the Paradise Park Loop once you get up to Timberline Loop proper. So for this one, I shall say Paradise Park 778. Last few tents here, and I call this zone Spiderweb Alley because all this overgrown bushery right on the perimeter of the trail. It creates perfect angles for spider webs go across the trail. So a couple straight tents there, which is in forest terms actually a pretty big swath of just endless spider webs. Clearly a spider colony makes that section their home base. This is our 7th down log. Super easy one. So this feels nice. See, now I'm away from Spiderweb Alley. There's a couple tents there where I was just walking with my arm in front of me, going up and down, knocking down spiderwebs. Kind of unique distinction of being the spiderweb clearer if you're the first one on the trail for the morning. I'm definitely the first one doing this ascension today, August 9th, 2025. Compliments to the crafters of Paradise Park 778, because this is a really comfortable gradation. Just did an all trails check, and I'm actually getting some good mileage and good elevation gain in, but because it's so gradual, I don't really feel it. It's kind of the best case scenario from a wilderness adventure point of view, is when you're getting the elevation in and the climb in, and it's so gradual, it doesn't really feel arduous. So I'm about 60% of the climb in, and I'm about 60% of the hike in, and I'm over halfway, and it's really not that bad. Pretty simple section. Got about 2.5 miles up and about 1,000 feet, about 1,500 feet in, another 1,000 feet to go. So I would say this, I'll say upper third of the ascension of Paradise Park 778 is starting to get a little bit more beautiful, a little bit more Mount Hood wilderness. I'm about 4 miles up, about 1,700 feet up from the trailhead. So I've got another about 2 miles and 800 feet elevation gain to get up to the PCT Timberline loop proper. So I'm now like in the top third of the ascension. First two, say the bottom 2/3 is candidly keeping it real, although beautiful in its own right, kind of generic Mount Hood National Forest, Mount Hood Wilderness, kind of carbon copy, Control C, Control V. You can get that anywhere around Mount Hood National Forest, really. Nothing to write home about in the first bottom 2/3. Cost of doing business. Now, if you're hiking up to Paradise Park Loop, do a night or 2 or 3 backpacking trip, it's just part of your cost of doing business. Totally worth it. But now I'm in the upper third. Already done the lion's share of my elevation gain for today. Still feel young and sprite like a newborn fawn, just getting started. It does feel like this area's had a slight ecological footprint change. It happens as you're gaining elevation. A little bit more alpine-y, a little bit more scenic. Not as pretty as actually being up on Timberline Loop. And there's easier ways to get to Timberline Loop, but it does feel a little bit more pretty up here. And it's kind of flattened out a bit. Have a series of these well-made infrastructure bridges over little babbling brooks, creeks. A lot of times those are created by the annual snow melt. If the water goes down, so parts of the year they are dry, like right now, probably raging April, May, June from the annual snow melt, and it probably dries up in the summer. It rages again in spring, winter, spring as it melts. So I'll give my guess on those. But they build the little bridges so it doesn't go across the trail. It would wash out the trail every year. They'd have to rebuild the trail. So instead of doing that, they just make a little bridge so that it doesn't impact the long-term viability of Paradise Park 778. I would say this is a very well-graded trail. If you're trying to hike up to Paradise Park Loop for a backpacking trip and you're not trying to do the entire Timberline Loop, you're just doing kind of a little targeted side trip to the west side of Paradise Park Loop, then this is a good forced approach, particularly if you want to avoid the Timberline Lodge crowd and big parking lot and a big swath of people. If you'd rather do a little bit longer ascent, get more of a solitude mountain approach, then I could see value in parking at Paradise Park, trailhead parking off the Kiwanis Camp Road, hiking up Paradise Park 778, and connecting with the PCT west a bit from the main population zone of Timberline Lodge, and having more of a private, secluded wilderness experience from soup to nuts, beginning to end. So I get it. I can see why somebody would choose this approach, particularly if they've fallen in love with Paradise Park and they feel like that's the premium zone they want to spend their time. It's a nice, high-quality little backpacking trip. And because of that, it's that classic cost of doing business front-end investment of ascending a forest hike, Paradise Park 778. That's what this trail is. And until you get up to the sweet spot, as I often say, the Tootsie Roll center of the Tootsie Pop. And we're gonna do a little switchback here. This trail's got a myriad of little switchbacks, but it's so well graded you don't really feel it. Like, technically we're going uphill, but it doesn't really feel like it that much. Well done, trail crafters. I will say the people that crafted Mount Hood National Forest area, Mount Hood Wilderness, were masters of their craft, no pun intended. They knew what they were doing. So most of these trails are really well built out, very high quality infrastructure zone. So we're in the top third, under 2 miles, like probably about 700 feet elevation gain at this point-ish. So lion's share of the work is done. This is still going up, but it's a little bit more gradual. I think the steepest gradation was the first series of switchbacks. We basically hammered that at the very beginning while we were still getting excited, still in our initial hiking exuberance of the start of the hike, so we didn't even notice that. Now we're up here and it's a lot more pleasant. We're away from the highway noise. That's nice. Do get a lot of planes overhead, but what can you do? Modern age. For the most part, it's pin drop quiet. Occasional roaring plane above us. One coming now. But hey, if the rest of the final 2 miles is like what I'm on right now, this is very pleasant because this is well graded and definitely going up, but it doesn't really feel like it. It's very comfortable. Another one of those narrow sections where we're walking through spider webs. Maybe Gwen Stefani's song was about Mount Hood Wilderness. There's a chance, probably not. There's spider webs. It's funny when you're walking up and you can see like reflection of a spider web from the sun. Like, okay, I'm about to walk through a spider web. Kind of hope. I kind of check the angle and say, okay, it's not gonna hit my face. I'll risk it. Just walk through it. You never know if there's a spider in it, how big it is. But that's how we roll here at Mount Hood Wilderness. Just as I said that, I felt something crawling on my hand. I was like, oh, just wipe off my hand. Won't even know what it was. Could have been a spider. Could have been just a flying bug. Ooh, I like this. This is beautiful. Love the edge of that log. See, now this, if you'll notice, is definitely a shift. Ecological footprint. This is what I'm talking about. This got a little bit more of that Timberline loop feel. Like it's got a little bit more of that Alpine ecological footprint, which I frankly enjoy. Perhaps the Scandinavian Norwegian in me, the Wanderlust, wants to be up in the Alpine zone. So I have an absolute deep love and appreciation for Timberline loop. I would say right up here when I came around this corner, first time I'm feeling like I'm on Timberline loop. I'm not, but Timberline loop adjacent. First time I'm kind of getting that. See like that spruce straight ahead? That spruce starting to finally get the Alpine mix. That indicates that we are Timberline adjacent. And for me, it amps up the beauty and experience to a whole nother level. So I will take mental note that, ooh, this is cool. Let me pin back and show you this little game of limbo. World's easiest game of limbo. Did it. I'm amazing. Yes, that was very challenging. But you see this? If you can contrast this section to what I was showing you earlier. Before it was kind of generic Mount Hood National Forest, Mount Hood Wilderness. Suddenly right around the 4.4 mile mark, the ecological footprint changed like somebody pushed a button. All of a sudden, look at this. Spruces, hemlocks, pines, cat's tail. Suddenly, we're in that Alpine Wonderland zone feel. See? If I didn't know this was Timberline Loop, I would think this was Timberline Loop. So, last 1.6 miles are Timberline adjacent, we'll say. I am digging. So, I definitely perked up. This is a lot more beautiful all of a sudden. I'm enjoying this a lot more all of a sudden. So, good mental note. Sorry, birds. I interrupted a bird dance party, but gotta do what I gotta do. Oh man, this is gorgeous. You can tell I am a fan of a wilderness Alpine Wonderland zone. This really has that Timberline feel. Since I've pretty much done the entire Timberline loop, but I had never done Paradise Park 778, it kind of feels like a bonus section of Timberline Loop. Timberline Loop adjacent, I'm calling it. So this is nice. I'm digging this. Very beautiful. This is beautiful. I am really enjoying this. Paradise Park 778 really became quite magical. I will say it's right around the 4.4 mile mark from the trailhead. It's like the first 4.4 miles are like generic heavy canopy Mount Hood National Forest, Mount Hood Wilderness. All of a sudden at mile 4.4, with about 600 feet left elevation getting to the PCT junction, it just like opens up and the ecological footprint changes like somebody pushed a button. Suddenly it's like a wonderland zone. You kind of feel like you're Timberline loop adjacent, kind of in that alpine wonderland ecological footprint. Totally different feel. And if you're a person like myself that covets that alpine wonderland ecological footprint that is the Timberline loop and Broken Top and Three Finger Jack and Mount Rainier and Mount Adams, and really I can name about 100 places, then you will like this section. So this to me is the beginning of the reward payoff for the ascent, right around the 4.4 mile mark. So this last 1.6 miles is going to go by Zigzag Mountain Trail Junction, ultimately connect with the PCT. This to me is the reward payoff section. We got our first actual difficult log crossing. I have to climb over this thing. As you can see, trail is right there. You have to be a giant to step over it. I think you just use this. Cool little log crossing there. Okay, so I'm looking back on Paradise Park 778 trail. See the right here, this is Zigzag Mountain Trail. This is your junction. There's no signage, but I happened to look at all trails and I saw that this was the next junction, so I'm sure this is it. Left, that's the direction I came from. This direction I'm going back on Mountain Back. That's Paradise Park 778. Here's your turn off to Zigzag Mountain Trail. No signage, just a little kind of overgrown little trail junction, but if you're doing Zigzag Mountain Trail, you'd go that way. But really both those trails are more likely to be going this way because we are just a few tenths from the PCT connecting up to 40-mile Alpine Wonderland Zone, otherwise known as the Timberline Loop. So we're just a few tenths away up here and we will be to the magical Wonderland Zone. Most people ascending Paradise Park 778 will be going on to Paradise Park Loop and camping, doing a little backcountry camping, night or 2 or 3 most likely, and basically be camping in a world-class premium Alpine Meadow full of flowers. Right now is kind of actually the best time to do it, around August. When I've read late July, August, kind of the best time for the blooming wildflowers. And they'll be just returning back down Paradise Park Trail 778. So that was our last junction before we get to the PCT. We're about a half mile and about 150 foot elevation gain left till we get up to Timberline Loop proper. This section definitely has a little bit more of a Alpine Wonderland feel, very what I'll call Timberline Loop adjacent. Kind of feels like it's Timberline Loop. A bit different than the first 2/3 of our ascension, which is a little bit more generic Alpine National Forest, wilderness. Keeping it real, but that's part of the cost of doing business to get up here. And this next half mile, once you get to the PCT, is the payoff. Go down the PCT for a few tenths and you're at the Paradise Park Loop, and you're in Alpine Meadow Wonderland, my friend. So I wanted to get the connector from Paradise Park Trailhead off Kiwanis Camp Road up to connect with the PCT. I like building out this network of access points to the Timberline Loop. This is kind of the southwest equivalent of the northwest approach, Mazama Trail. Have that full hike available as well. I am building out the mapping of this world-class Alpine backpacking zone. Timberline Loop is the premium backpacking loop in the state of Oregon. Will be followed by Broken Top and Three Finger Jack, top 3. Ooh, we're getting to some Wonderland views. Look at this. Oh yes. Come stand up here. Look at that, my friend. That is gorgeous. Looking down on Mount Hood Wilderness, Old Growth Wonderland. And I will continue along on our trail. Ooh, our first little proper Alpine Meadow. Look at this, my friend. This is gorgeous. You've been climbing up for hours, up almost 6 miles, Mount Hood National Forest and Mount Hood Wilderness, and you are feasting your eyes upon the first proper Alpine Meadow. Beautiful purple flowers, red flowers, white flowers. Ooh, an orange flower. Oh, this is beautiful. If you are a fan of flowers, if you are a fan of Alpine Meadows, then this, my friend, is an area for you. There's back on our trail. And this is a Wonderland zone. These are in full bloom here August 9th, 2025. Very beautiful zone. Kind of an amuse-bouche for the Paradise Park proper. Scan back again, show you this area. This area we hiked from is kind of overgrown trail. You can barely make it out. Here is our Alpine Meadow of flowers. Whites and purples and oranges and reds. Oh my. I am digging it. Something very surreal, serene, pristine, relaxing about a proper Alpine Meadow. I think August is a good time to come too. So we are going back in the forest. Again, we are in mop up. Final approach to the PCT, to the crossing the threshold of the 40-mile Timberline loop and completing this leg of our southwest approach to connect with Timberline Loop, which was our motivation to do this hike to begin with. Paradise Park 778 from Trailhead to PCT. 12 miles, 2,500 foot elevation gain. And we are in the last few tenths right now. Little overgrown section. At least that area was not spiderwebby. Unlike a couple miles down, there was a couple tenths of a section that I dubbed spiderweb row. Probably 20 or 30 spiderwebs I wasn't counting, but more that I could count. Section's very obstacle coursey. A lot to pay attention, not dangerous, but a little fancy footwork here and there. Practice situational awareness so you don't trip. More flowers. Not quite as meadowy as that last section, but really if you want a proper Alpine Meadow, you go up to Paradise Park, probably the premier Alpine Meadow in the Timberline loop, 40-mile loop, and maybe we would say Mount Hood Wilderness, Mount Hood National Forest. Ooh, there's another little quasi-meadow. But yeah, Paradise Park is the Alpine Meadow, we'll just say in the whole Mount Hood area. So if you covet, if you appreciate, cherish, and enjoy a good Alpine Meadow, then Paradise Park is your nirvana. And that's probably why you want to go backpacking up there. August is probably the perfect month. August 9th, I haven't seen a single mosquito, so July, you might contend with some mosquitoes, but by sometime in August, typically there's no mosquitoes. So I'd probably wait till August, have no mosquitoes, come enjoy the Alpine Meadows, the fresh air. What's not to love about Paradise Park Zone? And we're just a few tenths from PCT and then Paradise Park Loop, which is really the premium zone. We're not to the proper zone yet. This is the appetizer. Paradise Park Loop is really the sweet spot, and we're still several tenths away from actually being up there. So I'm not actually going up there today. I'm stopping at PCT and turning around, but I've got other hikes that capture that area. Oh, this is beautiful. I think we're getting darn close to the PCT junction. Like it's imminent, next tenth or two. Haven't done an all trails check. I've had 5G this entire time, T-Mobile. It's been nice to chart exactly where I am on the all trails app. But last time I checked, I was a few tenths of a mile away and I've been hiking for a while. So gotta think I'm a tenth or two away from actually connecting up with the PCT, Timberline Loop. Nice little mini meadow of white flowers here. Very pretty. purple and yellow. And, oh my, very nice. Oh, I always appreciate that contrast, that red straight ahead. Thankfully, it's like a dead tree, but I think it's beautiful. I mean, you can tell the beauty's amped up a bit compared to the first 2/3 of this hike, which was just more generic Mount Hood National Forest. Now we're all of a sudden like in this luscious wonderland zone because we're 10ths away from Timberline Loop, so the quality amps up, and I'm expecting around any one of these bends we're going to see the trail junction for PCT, so kind of in the final approach mop-up mode. I'm definitely enjoying every step of this magical wonderland. Ooh, look at that sun beaming through the old growth trees. Mossy old growth up there. Beautiful. And we are approaching the junction for Pacific Crest Trail for the mighty Timberline Loop. Little sign up there on the tree. Very nice. That sign said no fires beyond this point. Makes sense. They are protecting the pristine Alpine wonderland known as Timberline Loop. And lo and behold, my friend, I think we are coming up to the junction. Junction. I'm gonna actually go around this way so I don't have to step around the log. Yeah, got ourselves a little bit of a Wizard of Oz trail situation. Okay, so this is a key junction. I just hiked from this way, Paradise Park 778. It's the trail I ascended. Here's the main PCT. If you want to stay on the PCT, you continue to go that way. That takes you all through Ramona Falls. Or you can get on right here, Paradise Park 778 if you want to go do the loop, world-class backpacking loop, one of the, probably the highest quality Alpine Meadow in all of Timberline Loop, as well as Mount Hood Wilderness and Mount Hood National Forest. So that's the continuation if you're doing this as a backpacking hike from the trailhead I started, Paradise Park 778. I'm not doing that today. I'm going to come back and do that in October so I can capture all of the backcountry campsites with nobody in them. This is the classic direction you go if you're going towards Ramona Falls. That's what most backpackers are doing from the lodge. Here's the direction back towards the lodge where most people are hiking from. And then going here to the right over this log, that is the trail we came from. We'll be going back that way. But this, my friend, is a key junction in the southwest quadrant of the Timberline Loop. And most people will be going that way. This is a beautiful zone. The second you get on Timberline Loop, you can just hear angels singing. Like, this has a really beautiful feel to it. Tell you as a little bit of a hack before we go back that way. I'm gonna come over here a bit. Up here on the right is actually an overlook of Zigzag Canyon, which I will go take a look at before we turn around and go back. I've done this before. I've done Timberline Loop, so I do recognize exactly where we're at. I know this area well, in fact. Come up here, and you can see a clearing on the other side of this little section of forest. Here's a money shot of beautiful Zigzag Canyon, one of the more premium sections of the entire Timberline Loop. So this is the main trail that you'd be coming from if you're coming from Timberline Lodge. And then you come up here, here we are. Look at this, my friend. The beautiful Zigzag Canyon. Look down there. Oh, this is beautiful. A alpine wonderland of magic and joy. The beautiful Zigzag Canyon. You hike over the river, across the river down there. You ascend up right there. You continue along this way if you were doing Timberline Loop, 40-mile loop clockwise. So I thought we'd go over and check out that overlook since we were just like a couple hundred feet away from it when we got up to this junction. My intention for this hike was just to hike up to the PCT junction, which we just did. So I am now going to turn around and hike back down Paradise Park 778. I had never hiked from that trailhead, which is at the Kiwanis camp, up to Timberline Zone. Now I've done that, so that is one of the few trails right here I'd never done. So the completionist in me wanted to experience it. I'm glad I did it. All right, so we are now descending Paradise Park Trail 778. We went up 2,500 feet and 6 miles. Now we're going down 6 miles. I would expect the back half to fly a lot faster because it's all downhill. It might have 100 feet of elevation gain max just in the natural machinations of the trail. So probably 90 some odd % done with the elevation gain and halfway point of the actual mileage. So this will fly, which is nice, and a lot less exertion. So I've done the hard part. The hard half's done. I did it in the morning. It was a nice, cool temperature. And this area's got a lot of canopy cover as far as shade. So I'm actually not even really fatigued at all. So it's kind of a good feeling to hike up 6 miles and 2,500 feet and kind of still feel fresh like a newborn fawn. And now I'm going down. So this did not wreck me by any stretch. I feel like this is more of just a maintenance daily hike situation. Pretty easy, actually, all things considered. I'll give you my thoughts. I'm a huge fan, a super fan of Timberline Loop. I've done all of Timberline Loop. I've got a series of hikes trying to capture the highlights of Timberline Loop. I like to do the connecting trails like Mazama and Vista Ridge and Tilly Jane and the Clark and Newton Creeks in the southeast quadrant and crossing Shady River to Ramona Falls Loop in the southwest quadrant. So pretty much like to do all of the connector trail approaches up to Timberline Loop. I realized I'd never done Paradise Park 778, which is why I did this today. Really probably one of the only ones I hadn't done. I haven't done the Hidden Lake one to the southeast of this. I'll probably do that as well, just because I'm that much of a completionist nerd. So anyway, as far as my thoughts, I think most people doing this are doing this as a backpacking play. Park at the Paradise Park parking off Kiwanis Camp Road, and then hike up this 6 miles to the PCT, join up with Timberline Loop, and then go up to the Paradise Park Loop and camp in a world-class meadow. So I think that's the draw. That's why you come up here. So for that, I think this is a really high-quality trail, great forest canopy. Let's say Paradise Park Trail 778 is a utility hike, meaning it's the cost of doing business to get to the Tootsie Roll Center, the Tootsie Pop. If you want to go up and backpack at Paradise Park Loop, this is a great approach to get up there, and then it's just the cost of doing business. You know, you just put your head down and hike up Mount Hood National Forest, Mount Hood Wilderness, 6 miles. Suddenly you're at the meadow and you can camp for a couple nights, have a great time. For that, it's great. If you're just a Timberline Loop enthusiast and you want to get all of the angles and machinations and perspectives of this zone, I do not think that Paradise Park Trail 778 in itself, this 6 mile segment, is a destination worthy zone. It's really mostly just a utility forest play. The section I'm literally in as we speak, this right here is probably the highest quality little section, this 10th. Look at this, this is beautiful. Got this beautiful Alpine Meadow. So as far as the beauty of Paradise Park Trail 778 itself, I'd say the first 2/3 of it, from mile 0 to around 4, maybe up to 4.4, pretty generic cut and paste Mount Hood National Forest, Mount Hood Wilderness, keeping it real, kind of nothing special about it, nothing different than any other basic Mount Hood forest hike. So for that section, probably not worth, juice isn't worth the squeeze. But once you get to about 4.4, there's about a mile section where it all of a sudden has that alpine wonderland topography, spruces and mountain hemlocks and pines, and it just kind of has that classic alpine footprint that you recognize if you're a wilderness adventurer and alpine zone backpacker. That area was my favorite area. Then when you get closer to the PCT, there's a couple little meadows that are kind of like appetizers and amuse-bouches to the Paradise Park Loop up above, which is the premium Alpine Meadow zone in all of Timberline Loop and all of Mount Hood Wilderness and National Forest. So those are probably the best sections, but those are in the upper third, and they're decent, but I don't know if the whole hike is worth those sections, because you could get very similar sections on the general Timberline Loop without going up a couple thousand feet in order to get to it. So the reward ratio is not there, but as I said, if you're using this as your access point to come up and backpack and camp at Paradise Park Loop, enjoy the Alpine Meadow and the Wonderland, then this is a perfectly respectable approach hike. So I probably wouldn't do this as a bucket list hike for the hike itself, but that's why I call these cost of doing business hikes, like utility hikes, forest play hikes to get to the Tootsie Roll Center of the Tootsie Pop. So that is how I would characterize and explain Paradise Park 778. This trail, glad I did it once as a bucket list, kind of from my own mental mapping, because I kind of had done every hike in this area, and the completionist in me, the bucket list mentality, needed to check the box OCD style that I had done every single approach to Timberline. So for that reason, I'm glad I did it. But would I like tell people, oh dude, you got to go hike Paradise Park 77 trail from Kiwanis Camp Trailhead up to PCT? Would I go that far? Probably not, my friend. This is probably an approach hike that most people could skip if they're just looking for reward ratio payoffs and beauty. You're much better off just going to Timberline Lodge, parking, and then hiking west, that approach to Zigzag Canyon, and then descending down and crossing the river and hiking back up. That's a shorter distance to the Paradise Park Loop, and it's a more premium hike. So if I had a choice between that or this, I would definitely choose that from Timberline Lodge. So this is definitely an off the beaten path, more for backpacking purists, want to avoid the crowds of Timberline Lodge, and they just want a secluded experience from the first step to the last. Kind of a side approach where you can kind of sneak up to Timberline Loop without having to go through the heavy crowd sections, and then just kind of backdoor access to Paradise Park Loop, and then have your trip and come back down and really not really see more than a handful of people your entire time, and kind of have that secluded off the beaten path experience. So if that is what you covet, and I get that, I know a lot of people that think that way, and I am kind of more inclined in that camp, so I get it, then this is a great approach. But I wouldn't do Paradise Park 778 for the beauty, pure beauty of the trail itself. So that is how I would characterize this trail. There is Zigzag Mountain Trail, no signage, you just happen to know. So that's a miss. I think they should have a trail junction there. It's an important enough trail junction, because that whole Zigzag Mountain thing is a whole thing. Like, that's a backpacking trip in itself, that it's worth having a little brown sign that says Zigzag Mountain Trail that way, you know, a couple tents to the PCT that way. That seems like a place that is missing a junction sign, my humble opinion. Overall, I've been very complimentary. I think they did a great job crafting this trail system as far as the gradation, and it's world class and beautiful, but that's probably the only miss that I would point out, is that they should have a trail sign there, I think. But what do I know? I'm just a wilderness adventurer. The guy with the camera and a phone wandering around rambling. That's what I am. And now here I am hiking back to the trailhead. Really enjoy this ecological footprint. Gives me that Alpine Wonderland Zone vibe. Digging it, my friend.